Happy Sabbath, church family. One of my greatest joys is to be able to sing about God's grace and God's mercy and God's love. I have an arrangement of this song, but it doesn't give the song the justice that it needs. So I'm going to be singing from my heart to yours and pray that you will be blessed. When he was on the cross, I was on his mind. I'm not on an ego trip. I'm nothing on my own. I make mistakes. I often slip. I'm just common flesh and bone. But I'll prove someday just why I say that I'm of a special kind. For when he was on the cross, I was on his mind. Oh, the look of love was on his face, and thorns were on his head. Blood was on his scarlet robe, stained crimson red. Though his eyes were on the crowd that day, he looked ahead in time. For when he was on the cross, I was on his mind. He knew me, yet he loved me. He whose glory makes the heavens shine, so unworthy of God's mercy, yet when he was on the cross, I was on his mind. Yet when he was on the cross, I was on his mind.
I've been preaching for over a month now on the 144,000, and we've talked about what the 144,000 is, that the 144,000 is a census, and the unit for the census is the household. We've talked about Balaam and the 144,000 and why that story is connected in Revelation to the 144,000, because the story of Balaam takes the people of Israel right up to the border of Canaan, and then they throw away their inheritance. So today we're going to talk about another story and two stories that help us understand that if the household is the unit, when we get to heaven, what happens to all the single people that are saved? Are they left locked out of the city because they're not part of a household? No. The wisdom of God makes clear in a certain story on the shores of the Jordan River that nobody is left out, that every single person is counted in with the families who are going into the heavenly city. And I call this redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. So we're talking about being redeemed and redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. And the Passover created a redemption by the blood of the Lamb so that the destroying angel would not touch anyone in the household. So the proposition, here's the main point: the slaying of the firstborn was prevented by the blood of the Lamb on the houses of the children of Israel. So if you'll turn in your passages, and this was read, you have the New King James Version in your lap or on your phone or in your pew next to the hymnal, unless all the Bibles have been stolen over the winter. We'll have to get some new ones. Turn to Exodus 12:1-6. And this sentence helps us to understand that if a household is too small for the lamb, that is to eat a whole lamb by itself, whether it's a single person, whether it's a widow, whether it's a person who is not married, they would join with another household that needed more people also to finish the lamb. So you'll see this story from the Passover, and it's connected to the 144,000. We even started with the 144,000 idea with the creation of Adam and Eve, how God wanted them to multiply and take dominion over the whole earth. So in Exodus 12:1-6, it says, "Now the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, 'This month shall be your beginning of months.'" It's not the beginning of the year, but it's the beginning of months. Agriculturally, it's the first harvest. "It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak to all the congregation of Israel, saying, 'On the 10th of this month, every man shall take for himself a lamb, according to the house of his father, a lamb for a household. And if the household is too small for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next to his house take it according to the number of the persons.'" You see, the number is connected to a census. But it starts in a household or two households next door to each other. "According to each man's need, you shall make your count for the lamb." Now in America, to help us understand it, at Thanksgiving time, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving in the church. We celebrate Thanksgiving in our homes. And the kids and the cousins from all over the state or all over the country come to eat turkey, pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes and gravy, and turnips. Yuck. So in the Passover, the families get together. Passover is celebrated in the home. It's not really celebrated in the synagogues. They'll have a service to remind people to do this. But all the Sabbaths are celebrated in the home, and you invite strangers, you invite singles into your home, so nobody is eating lamb and bitter herbs all by themselves. So when you go to select your turkey, you buy a turkey that will accommodate how many people are coming to your house for Thanksgiving. So if it's just you and a neighbor, you'll buy a 6-pound turkey. If all the cousins and by the dozens come, you might need 2 16-pound turkeys. So with the Passover, you choose your lamb according to the count. You get the connection with 144,000? It's a census, it's a count, but it's a meal with a deal. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it because the Passover is the beginning of the Sabbath years or Sabbath months. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. You may take it from the sheep or from the goats. That helps us understand the Day of Atonement maybe a little clearer as the use of goats as a sacrifice also. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. The lunar month has 28 days. Roman months have 30 days, so we get off real quickly on the counting of the days. So you go to the 14th day, which is going to bring you to the full moon. New moon to full moon, 14 days. Full moon to the next new moon is another 14 days. Now you shall keep it until the 14th day of the same month. Then the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it at twilight, when the sun goes down. And then they start roasting it after they kill it, and they eat it through the night. Verses 7 through 13. Now the blood shall be a sign to you on the houses where you are. So the whole congregation is celebrating this, but they're celebrating it house by house. And all these houses are roasting a lamb or a goat. And they shall take some of the blood and put it on the 2 doorposts and on the lintel of the houses where they eat it. So if 2 small houses are joining together, one house will have the blood, and if nobody's eating it on the other house. The other house doesn't have the blood because it's empty. The blood is to redeem the people, not the house. Then they shall eat the flesh on that night, roasted in fire with unleavened bread, which is like crackers, rye crisps, or matzah, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Do not eat it raw, nor boiled at all with water, but roasted in fire, its head with its legs and its entrails. You don't clean it like a fish. You shall let none of it remain until morning, and what remains of it until morning you shall burn with fire. And thus you shall eat it, with a belt on your waist, your sandals on your feet, and your staff in your hand. So you shall eat it in haste, which my kids eat in haste anyway. You don't have to tell them to eat it in haste. It's the Lord's Passover. It's not your Passover. It's the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt on that night and will strike all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Yahweh. Now the blood shall be a sign for you on the houses where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be on you to destroy you when I strike the land of Egypt. So who's the sign for? Is it a sign for other Jews? Is it a sign for the Egyptians? Is it a sign for the house? Come in here. We're going to have a feast tonight. This is the house. Don't go next door. It's empty. No, the sign is for the Lord, that they shall not be stricken with the Egyptians that night. And when he sees the blood on the lintel and the two doorposts, the Lord will pass over and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said to them, pick out and take lambs for yourselves, according to your families, and kill the Passover lamb. That's where you see the unit for the 144,000 is the families. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, dip it in the blood that it is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two doorposts with the blood that is in the basin. And none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning. Nobody's going out tonight. To keep your kids safe, don't let them go out at night. Keep them in the house safe and sound with all the family. And none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning, for the Yahweh will pass through to strike the Egyptians. That's who it's intended for. And when he sees the blood on the lintel and on the two doorposts, the Yahweh will pass over the door and not allow the destroyer to come into your houses to strike you. And you shall observe this thing as an ordinance for you and your sons forever. it will come to pass, when you come to the land which the Lord will give you, just as he promised, that you shall keep this service. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Yes, I am. I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. Filled with the Holy Ghost I am. All my sins are washed away. I've been redeemed. Therefore, I sacrifice to the Lord all males that open the womb, but all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. It shall be as a sign on your hand and as frontlets between your eyes. For by strength of hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt. Going to Exodus 13, 15 through 16, it says, And Moses said to the people, Remember this day in which you went out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. On this day you are going out in the month Abib. I am the Lord your God. This is the beginning of the covenant in the Ten Commandments. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So now we're going to look at what happens to the daughters of Zelophehad when they're going into the promised land and they don't have a place to go to. So we're going to talk about the daughters of Zelophehad as singles and married, the judgment of God in the awarding the land in the promised land. This is what the 144,000 story is in Revelation. When you get to heaven, you are awarded a mansion. You are awarded a place to be with God, but you go in by tribes. It's not by gender, it's by family and by tribes. So if you go to Numbers 27, 1-5, this is after the sin at Baal Peor. It's after 24,000 people died in a plague because they quit worshiping God, worshipped idols, and sealed it with a sacrificial meal and a sexual initiation rite. Numbers 27, 1-5. Then came the daughters of Zelophehad. Zelophehad is the name of the father of the daughters, the son of Hepher, the son of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, from the families of Manasseh, the son of Joseph. So these girls are descendants of Joseph, and that is how all of Israel ended up in Egypt, was because Joseph ended up in Egypt. And these were the names of his daughters: Mahlah, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. And they stood before Moses, before Eleazar the priest. and before the leaders and all the congregation by the doorway of the tabernacle of meeting, saying, Our father died in the wilderness, but he was not in the company of those who gathered together against the Lord in company with Korah, but he died in his own sin. He wore himself out in his own sin, and he had no sons. Now, to understand this in the biblical sense, the sign that you were going to live in the land, that promise and that covenant was sealed with circumcision. When God promised Abraham that his descendants would live in that land, he circumcised Isaac and he circumcised Ishmael. So the covenant as to who God was giving to the land, the covenant was sealed by circumcision. So here comes the daughters, and the land is being awarded to families, not just to males, and they get a portion of a tribal land, but it's awarded to males who have been circumcised that they can identify with Israel. Women do not get circumcised unless they're Muslim in some interesting tribe that wants the women not to have any pleasure. So it's not so much the fact, and we'll illustrate this here in a moment with the text. Our father died in the wilderness, but he was not in the company of those who gathered together against the Lord in company with Korah. But he died in his own sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be removed from among his family? Because he had no son. Because the unit is the family. The unit is not the son. Give us a possession among our father's brothers. So Moses scratches his head and says, wow, this is too hard for me. So Moses brought their case before the Lord. Numbers 27, 6-11. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, the daughters of Zelophehad speak what is right. You shall surely give them a possession of inheritance among their father's brothers, and cause the inheritance of their father to pass to them, and you shall speak to the children of Israel. Now, the distinction is, this is a law for the children of Israel and not just for the sons, because the inheritance is for families. Saying, if a man dies and has no son, then you shall cause his inheritance to pass to his daughter. If he has no daughter, then you shall give his inheritance to his brothers. If he has no brothers, then you shall give his inheritance to his father's brothers. This is what happens in the story of Ruth. When Ruth and Naomi come back, and this is where we start talking about the kinsman redeemer and being redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. The inheritance is not for the singular male, the inheritance is for the families. And it shall be to the children of Israel a statute of judgment. We saw back in Exodus 12 that there's an ordinance, a perpetual forever ordinance, and now you have a statute of judgment, which this sets a precedent that becomes the law. And it's God who made the law, not Moses. It's not Moses' law. It's Yahuwah's law. Numbers 30, 12 through 16. We skip a few chapters, and there's several special judgments that are made with the tribe of Joseph at the end of Numbers. But I don't have time for that now. But if her husband truly made, this is a law of vows here. Let's see here. In Numbers 30, so you're skipping 3 chapters here. But if her husband truly made them void on the day he heard them, and I'm using this law as to help us with the understanding that the units are not the individual, and especially not the individual male who controls the family. It has to do with making vows to God. But if her husband truly made them void on the day he heard them, then whatever proceeded from her lips concerning her vows or concerning the agreement binding her, it shall not stand. Her husband has made them void, and the Lord will release her. Because this law has to do with the preservation of the tribe and not of the husband. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict her soul, her husband may confirm it, or her husband may make it void. Now, if her husband makes no response whatever to her from day to day, from one day to the next, if I were publishing my Riva Robinson's revised version, the triple RV, I would add from one day to the next. Then he confirms all her vows or all the agreements that bind her. He confirms them because he made no response to her on that day, that he shall bear her guilt. She has the right to make a vow unless it hurts the tribe. Then it's nullified because of the circumcision for the land. These are the statutes. This is not a judgment. These are the statutes which the Lord commanded Moses between a man and his wife, and between a father and his daughter in her youth in her father's house. So it's not according to gender, and this goes all the way back to Genesis, that the covenant of the Sabbath, the covenant of the creature, the nephesh, that is created in the image of God, nobody gets to do whatever they want to do. Everybody has to make a covenant in order to do it. Even God can't do everything that he wants to do. At the flood, he wanted to destroy the earth and destroy all of mankind. But he didn't get to do what he wanted to do because Noah and his family was in covenant with him. He had to save them, so he had to start the whole human race over with them. And then he puts a rainbow in the cloud to let people know God doesn't get to do whatever he wants to do. And he will not destroy the world by water again because of that covenant, even though several times he's wanted to kill everybody and start over again. So when God's people, an individual man doesn't get to do whatever he wants to do, and an individual woman doesn't get to do whatever she wants to do. Nobody in all of the universe gets to do unilaterally what they want to do. They have to take into consideration that every action they take affects somebody else. Numbers 36, 1-4. When I was a kid, I thought when I grew up, I could eat donuts every day. Because grown-ups didn't seem to follow the same rules as kids. When I grew up, I found out from my doctor, you cannot eat donuts every day, even if you want to. You get my drift? And when the Jubilee of the children of Israel comes, here's the issue. It's not a gender male-female thing. In Numbers 36, 1-4, it says, "Now the chief fathers of the families of the children of Gilead, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, the families of the sons of Joseph, came near and spoke before Moses and before the leaders, the chief fathers of the children of Israel. And they said, the Lord commanded my Lord Moses to give the land as an inheritance by lot to the children of Israel." Now here's a linguistic point. In Spanish, every language that's analytical, in Hebrew and Latin, there is gender associated with every single noun. So if you have a boy, it's a male child. If you have a girl, it's a female child. In Spanish, it's niño and niña. But if you have several children and they're together, boys and girls, it takes the male collective in the plural. So in Spanish, it's niños. In English, it's children. Children comes from the German. German is much more analytical than English is. English is very descriptive. We just say whatever we want to say, and we think people understand. The families of the sons of Joseph came near and spoke before Moses and before the leaders, the chief fathers of the children of Israel, which is collective, both male and female. And they said, the Lord commanded my Lord Moses to give the land as an inheritance by lot to the children, not to the sons. Not just the males, because they're coming to complain about God's judgment that they're going to give an inheritance to females now. So they can't just say sons, they have to say children. So in the fifth commandment, it says, honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. It's about the reward, the land and the tribes. Now, when we get to heaven, and this is how it becomes apocalyptic in the world to come, we get our reward according to the tribes of Israel. The gates, the 12 gates of the heavenly Jerusalem, have the names of the 12 sons of Israel. So whether you're a man or a woman, or whether you're Gentile or Jew, the closer you get to Jesus, the more Jewish you're going to get. That's more than you can handle today. Oh, I'm sorry. The Lord commanded my Lord Moses to give the land as an inheritance by lot, which it was given by casting lots to the tribes, to the clans, to the families, to the cousins, to the uncles, to the children of Israel. And my Lord was commanded by the Lord to give the inheritance of our brother Zelophehad to his daughters, because they are children of Israel. Now, if they are married to any of the sons of the other tribes of the children of Israel, then their inheritance will be taken from the inheritance of our fathers, and it will be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry. So now this is not an individual case. This is a tribal political issue about land. It's not about brothers, it's not about sons, it's not about daughters. It's about the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. So it will be taken from the lot of our inheritance, and when the Jubilee of the children of Israel comes, then their inheritance will be added to the inheritance of the tribe into which they marry. So their inheritance will be taken away from the inheritance of the tribe of our fathers. So singles are counted as a household. Single females are counted as a separate household. When they get married, they subtract, but they gain a tribe. And they become a tribe. As you see, when you read through the Old Testament, you're always going through these genealogies. So, when we go back to the Passover, Moses comes to set the children of Israel free. But he's not the oldest in his family. He has a brother and a sister that older than him. The oldest is not Aaron. The oldest is Miriam, who watched him in the reeds to make sure that the crocodiles didn't eat the baby who was to be the deliverer of Israel. So when he goes back to the land after 40 years of being Midian, he doesn't have a house to put the blood on the door for himself, because now his oldest and his two boys, which incidentally who were not circumcised, and the angel of the Lord was going to kill Moses because he had not circumcised his boys, when he was going to take them to the land, because the covenant with Israel is that males would be circumcised for the land. The accommodation in the daughters of Zelophehad is that they come under the covenant of the tribes. So when we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be, when we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout the victory. Daniel 12:4 says, "But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase." And he said again later, "Go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed till the time of the end. Many shall be purified, made white, and refined, but the wicked shall do wickedly, and none of the wicked shall understand." If you don't understand, start reading your Bible. "But the wise shall understand. But you go your way till the end, for you shall rest and will arise to your inheritance at the end of days." In the King James it says, "You will arise in your lot." Here's the problem with Daniel. When he was taken into captivity, he was made a eunuch. A eunuch could not inherit the land. He was in the royal family. He was part of the tribe of Judah. But being a eunuch, he would have no inheritance. But this chapter says something apocalyptically about our inheritance in heaven. It's still allotted by families. And even if you're a eunuch, if you've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb, you can be counted in the new Jerusalem. You see, when we say, "I've been redeemed by the blood of the Lamb," people break out singing and rejoicing because they finally got a place. They're no longer captive in this world. Because it's not awarded to you because of you. It's awarded to you because of Jesus. It's awarded to you because you, when you accept Jesus, become part of the tribe. The closer you come to Jesus, the closer you come to the people of Israel. That's where the covenants come from. Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy communion coming up. Let's all stand. The The Lord bless you and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you and give you peace. Wherever you are, when you're at home, that's where the blood is applied, at home. The blood is not applied at church, it's applied at home. For you, for your kids, and I believe even for your pets in the new heaven and the new earth. They have been redeemed at home by Jesus. With Jesus in the family, happy, happy home. If you go to work, God is with you, and whatever you do, your hands will be blessed, because you are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. And if you go anywhere in this old world, and this old world can be cruel and treat you like you don't belong, but you belong anywhere in the world because you are redeemed by the blood of the Lamb. God bless you now, and remember what Jesus said, "Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the world." Amen.